Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the Youth Academy once again on FIFA 22. The Youth Academy is one of those things that's really hard to keep realistic, but it can be fun if you manage to do it. It's also an area of the mode that everyone really enjoys using, so hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a couple of ways to help keep your Youth Academy realistic and help keep your career modes a little bit more fun. Now, if we're being totally honest, if you want to keep it fully realistic, you should just use 1-star scouts. That's basically the end of it because you'll get 1 or 2 gems a season, which I think is probably realistic for a Premier League side. If you don't play them until they're 70 overall or 18 years old, then fair enough, you've got a fairly realistic Youth Academy. But if you want to go a bit more in depth, then I've got some tips for you in this video, including how to use your scouting slots and how to make sure you have players that are getting the right potential for the type of team that you are. So let's get started with my first tip. If you've ever played Football Manager, you'll know that there's something called a Youth Intake Day. This is something that happens every single season on the game. You get all your Youth Academy players all at once, you can see their potentials, overalls, and you can decide which ones you sign. You can do something similar to this on FIFA 22, and it's something that I really do recommend you do give a go in your next save. What you need to do is send all your youth scouts out for 9 months. On their final report, so that's after 9 months, have a look at all of the reports at once. So don't look at them every time you get one every single month. Pick 11 players or 1 player for each position in your main formation and discard the rest of the players, and this is the new youth intake for that season. If you wait a few months and then send out your youth scouts again, so wait 3 months and then do another 9-month scout, every single year you'll get a new batch of 11 players and you'll have to pick really carefully which ones you pick. You'll also have the problem of the AI picking some of the better players from your youth academy, so you won't pick the best players because some of them will be going to Manchester United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus. You'll have to pick the ones that suit your team the most. I think this is really good because it means you won't always have all the best generated players, and it means the AI will also get some good young players that they can develop as well. I think this keeps the save a little bit more fun because you've always got the challenge of AI teams having better players, and I think it keeps it realistic as well because you won't always have all the best talents coming through at one club. You can also merge this with a different tip that I have where you limit players to a single player in each position. For example, if you're playing 4-3-3, have 1 goalkeeper, 4 defenders, 3 midfielders and 3 attackers. If it's 4-4-2, then do the same but with 4 midfielders and 2 attackers and so on. If you're doing this with the intake, then maybe you could have 2 in each position as long as they're different ages, because that would be more how a youth team would work in real life. If you're setting a potential cap based on your division, for example, you can't have 11 90 to 94 potential players no matter the league. Even a Barcelona or a Manchester United won't have more than 1 or 2 players with this kind of potential at any point. Then if you set a potential cap based on your division, then you will have probably a more realistic time. For example, if you set a cap of 80 potential while you're not in the Premier League, then that's probably fairly realistic because you will see a couple of players in the lower leagues of England, for example, coming through with 80, 81, 82 potential. You won't see too many unless it's someone like Dele Alli on FIFA 17 coming through with the high 80s, and you'll get a couple more people like Brennan Johnson and Keane Lewis-Potter who have low 80s for potential. If you set this to 85, it's probably more realistic if you're a top 6 club, but again, I don't think too many 85 potential players would be coming through at any Premier League team other than these big 6 clubs. So maybe while you're in the lower league, set it to 75, when you get to the Championship or lower Premier League team, set it to 80, and then when you're a top 6 club, try and sign players who are 85 and above. If you're always selling your players when they're coming in from bigger leagues as well, it can make it a lot more fun because you'll have random players leaving and you'll always have holes to plug in your team. It could mean you find another Youth Academy player, or maybe you go to the transfer market and just sign a ready-made player. I do think it keeps the Youth Academy section more fun, not always having these players you know they've got really good potential. And if you go to the transfer market, of course, there is a little bit more guesswork where you'll have to try and find out which players have what kind of potential from things like has potential to be special. It makes it a lot more tough and a lot more fun, in my opinion, if they haven't all come through your youth academy. Of course, you don't also have to use all 3 of your scouting slots. If you're playing as a smaller club, maybe someone in the 2nd division of France or someone like Ross County in Scotland, then you should just be scouting France or Scotland. Once you move up to a decent level, so maybe you get promoted to the top flight of France, or maybe you take over someone like Rangers and Celtic, why don't you then scout one of the realistic nations? So for France, that could be somewhere like Brazil or Spain, or if you're playing as someone like Celtic or Rangers, maybe go for England and Scotland. When you become the massive team, maybe go for any 3 that you like, because pretty much any player would join someone like Manchester United. You have a look, they've got players like Garnacho, who's from Argentina. They've had players coming through from Holland, Spain, Italy, pretty much everywhere. So that makes it a little bit more realistic as well. While you're keeping on top of your scouts as well, make sure you've got the right level for your team. As I mentioned, only using 1 star is probably the most realistic for any team on the game, but if you're a smaller club, maybe League 1 and League 2, keep it at 1 star, and if you want to get a bit better of a youth academy as you progress, go up to 2 star in the championship, or 3 star when you get to a top flight, no matter the country. I think this gives you better players, and of course you would get better players joining a more successful team. So again, I think this is definitely realistic. And if you do get a really good star while you're in League 1 or League 2 with this 1 star scout, it can be really fun because you know that they're probably not going to have anyone of their level coming through your academy anytime soon. So you can kind of treasure them and build your team around them pretty well. Some quick tips and some summarizations for the end of this video now. So we've got a couple of tips here where you don't use academy scouts that are higher than your team's star rating. I think this is a good one because when you're in the lower leagues, you'll probably have 1 and 2 star teams. So you don't want to go above 1 and 2 star scouts either. It does keep it a bit more realistic and it does give you a reason to keep improving your squad. Maybe try and only keep 1 or 2 players per area of the pitch, so don't stockpile 5 left wingers while you have 0 right wingers unless you plan to retrain them in the future. Always scout countries that you have players from already. For example, if you've got a bunch of Irish players in a team like Rochdale, then go and scout Ireland because you can probably say that that is realistic. If you're scouting somewhere like Brazil or Paraguay as Rochdale, probably not that realistic. And finally, neighbouring countries are always a good place to scout if you're unsure if it's realistic or not. For example, if you're in England, somewhere in the north, maybe scout Scotland. If you're somewhere on the west coast, maybe have a look at Wales or Ireland. Or if you're over on the east coast of England, have a look at Scandinavia. Similarly, if you're in the north of Italy, maybe look towards France, Switzerland, Germany, that kind of thing. So have a look where your club is on a map and try and find out what countries are realistic, because there probably will be quite a lot of players and people moving between these 2 areas. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video and hopefully you'll subscribe so you see more FIFA content for both FIFA 22 now and FIFA 23, or EA Sports FC as I think it's called now, coming on the channel very soon. If you've got any comments on how you keep your youth save realistic or any other tips that you think people should know for FIFA career mode, please do leave them in the comments below because I know I and many other people do love to read them. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed any of my tips. As I said, leave comments below and consider giving a super thanks if you want to help support the channel by clicking the heart below the video. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully I'll see you very soon for another FIFA career mode. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you and goodbye.